Welcome to Nap Time Brand Time. We do this every Monday where I literally race and run to get my daughter down, and then I come back over here just to answer your questions about branding and design and marketing. And so I'm actually going to be changing this up a little bit. I've made some big changes to my content strategy, and so starting next week these are going to change just a little bit and hopefully make them a little bit more accessible for people. And so stay tuned for that. I'm really excited. But everything in these videos is based on conversations I have with real people. Hi, welcome. Everything in these videos is based on conversations I have with real people, with clients, with people I know, and so I love to answer your questions. So if you have any branding questions, please, by all means. I always want to make sure that I'm creating content that is valuable to you, and so let me know. Okay, so today we are talking about brand visuals, which I am super excited about. As a designer, I could talk like visuals all day long. And so I've been doing a lot of rebranding for people recently, and so I've been kind of seeing this pop up that one of the biggest reasons why I've noticed that people want to rebrand at all is because they feel like what they've established right now isn't recognizable, that they're not getting recognized, they're not getting noticed with what they have now. And so that they don't think they're recognizable. And so how can we work on that within what you already have, and how can we help establish a brand if you do need to rebrand that is recognizable? So one of the biggest things that I like to start with as like a nice example is just thinking about brands that that are really recognizable. What are the most recognizable brands that you can think of? So the top three that I just came up out of the top of my head were Coca-Cola, super recognizable, Apple, and Starbucks. Super recognizable. So if you picture each of those companies in your mind, you have very clear visuals. So think about Coca-Cola, Apple, Starbucks. You can picture their stores, you can picture the product, you can picture the advertising, you can picture the graphics. You could make up, like if Seth Godin does this a lot, but he basically says like if Coca-Cola was going to open a hotel, could you picture what that hotel looks like? And that is the mark of a strong brand. If that's something that you could already kind of picture what it would look like, then you already have the makings of a good, strong brand. So what makes these brands recognizable? There's a few things. They have a very specific mood and energy. You think of like Coca-Cola, like the bright red, they're bright and happy. Apple is a little bit more like sleek and modern. And Starbucks is a little bit more like cozy and warm. They have a set style. So with every new product or piece of content that comes out, you know there's going to be some elements that you recognize in their style. So like Coca-Cola, you're always going to see the red. You know, if you go down their Instagram, there's a ton of different styles of graphics, but there's that red there every single time. Or they're like the shape of their bottle, that iconic bottle. So iconic, and so they're recognizable. They have a set style. And so even though they kind of play around within that style, they still are always keeping to their basics. Another thing is that they're authentic to themselves. They're not trying to be something they're not. You know, it's something that takes time to build up as a brand, but these brands have done it really well. And, they're making sure that what they are posting and what they're actually marketing is authentic and it really feels true to them. Like if, Apple all of a sudden decided to start like discounting their prices, and we're like, yeah, now we're going to offer 50% off every holiday. And that's not something that they've established in their brand. That's not something they have shown is important to them. And so they've stuck with it and people respect it. And so the last thing with that is that they're consistent, that they're not changing things up all the time. They're not trying, but you can try to find ways to like reinvent the wheel and to surprise people, but within still your set brand parameters. And so how can we go about building this for ourselves as small business owners? It can seem kind of overwhelming to like look at big brands and then to feel like how could I even possibly make something like that work for myself? But it's absolutely doable. I've been working with big brands forever, and I love being able to take those topics and be able to apply them to small brands because these big brands have been doing all of this since they were small brands. That's a reason why they're a big brand, is because they were consistent from the get-go. They had a really set branding. People could really like put a nail on them, who they are, and they sold incredibly quickly, obviously, and they are where they are now. So I'm going to go through 3 quick 5 steps that you need to build a recognizable brand. So recognizable visual brand for your business. So the first thing is to define your brand. So before you even get started on any visuals, you really need to go back through and get started with, it's like laying a foundation for who your brand is. You can't create visuals if you don't know who you are, what you stand for, and who you serve. Those are, you know, some of like the very, very basics here. Before you start designing anything is figuring out who you serve, who's your ideal customer, what you stand for, so what your ideals are, what, you know, like even your mode of business is. You've got to have a lot of questions answered before you can even start like designing and putting yourself out there. So the goal is to create a style that authentically represents you and effectively communicates to your customers. So you need both. You need both. You need to be thinking about you and what's something that you can consistently and authentically keep up for you and your business, but also what's going to be attracting your ideal clients. And so, hey, Katie, thanks for jumping on. So thinking about those two things. So defining your brand is the first step. And so that's basically laying the behind the scenes work of getting to know you and your story. And that psychology is so important when it comes to the design. So step 2, after you've defined your brand and you've done all the pre-visual work, next is doing market research. So this is another huge step that I feel like can get skipped a lot, but figuring out what other brands are doing well and where they're lacking. So here's where you want to research other businesses in your market, and that includes top-level brands and then also people that are a lot closer to your demographic. And so I usually recommend choosing about 10 different businesses. And then like when I work with clients, we put together like an Excel sheet. And so if that's something that you want to do, take good notes, but compare every single one of these brands and really look at their visual branding. And so here's a few questions that you can kind of ask is, what are they doing effectively? So how are they attracting customers? What are they doing effectively? What is their audience responding to? What is their customer experience like? That's a huge part of your brand, is the actual customer experience. And then most importantly, what can you do that sets you apart? So you have 10 businesses here that you can look at and say like, okay, great, they all seem to be using these general colors, or they all seem to be using kind of the same personality style or the same website templates. You know, it's really easy to see once you actually line all this stuff up to kind of see where there's maybe some parts that are missing. And so what is no one else doing? What can you do that will still attract the same customers, but in a unique way that these other brands aren't doing? So remember that the ultimate goal is to create something that is wholly your own. This step can be a little hard because I just want to warn you, don't fall in love with another brand's visuals. That's really hard. And sometimes during this market research, I see customers kind of fall into this gap where they end up just pining for another brand. Basically, they just want this brand. And if you can just make this brand, but me. And that isn't the same brand. You're not the same brand. You're not going to be doing the same thing. And so just being really careful that the more time that you spend staring at someone else's visuals, sometimes the harder it is to like your own. So use this all for research, write it all down, make a Pinterest board, keep what you like, and then let it go. Let it go. Focus on your brand. So the next thing, an easy way kind of to help break away from that too is the next step is figuring out your style. And so this will help you kind of break away from these other brands that you've been staring at. But the biggest part of this for me as a designer is mood. Mood is huge in defining your style. How do you want customers to feel when they interact with your brand? Do you want them to be excited? Do you want them to be cozy and calm? Do you want them to feel driven and confident? So to show your mood visually, I'm a huge proponent of the mood board. All about the mood board. A mood board is basically, it's a big vision board for your business, and you can compile any and all images that make you feel the way that you want your customers to feel. So, you know, same thing, what makes you feel excited? What makes you feel cozy and calm, you know? And put them together into a giant vision board. So you can include graphics, you can include quotes, you can include color palettes, you can include design references, you can include photos. So basically put together a giant pile of everything that makes you feel the way that you want your business to feel. And then from there, you can really start to refine your style. So you can start to see things that are the same, narrow down and notice what all these images have in common. It's a really easy way to also be able to pick your colors, to be able to pick just generally your style if you're not sure yet. Just start compiling images, pick your top like 10 to 20, and then look at them all together. And it'll give you a really nice feel for what you want your business to look like and how you want people to feel with your business. And then the other thing you can do too is using adjectives to describe your style, and that really helps. And so like modern and masculine, or youthful and playful, or classic and refined, using a few set adjectives that you can keep referencing back to. The next step after you've done all of these things, step 1 through 3, so you've defined your brand, you have done your market research, and then you've figured out your own style. Now is when you can really start deciding your visual elements. So here's where you take all of those things and you figure out exactly what you want your brand to look like visually. So that includes your color palette. So you can really reference back to your mood board. I actually did a live video on your color palette a few weeks ago, so you can definitely check that out. Any imagery or like symbols or mascots or like patterns, so any imagery that you feel like really helps describe you. And then your typography, your fonts. And so those are kind of the few things that you really want to start to figure out at the beginning that will really kind of help you get into the flow for the rest of your business. Hey Donna, thanks for jumping on. And so deciding your visual elements. And so you've combined everything that you've done in these previous steps, and you now are actually in a place where you can make some firm decisions and some educated decisions on what you're doing. And so just remembering that it's something that you can follow consistently. So something that feels authentic for you, that you can follow consistently, something that's different than other brands in your market, and then something that you truly feel like is going to attract your ideal customer. So those are the big things that you're always looking out for in your visuals. And then the last step after you've established your visual elements is creating a style guide. So that way you can keep it up. Keep it up. You got to keep it up. That's the hardest part. Is I see this all the time, that people will go through so much work to put together this full brand. They have, you know, beautiful even like graphics built out, you know, logos and icons and all of these amazing things built up, and then it comes time to actually like be in the like middle of creating content for their business, and all of a sudden they're just kind of like, this Canva template kind of looks the closest to what I'm doing, like that's fine, and it gets lost. And so I know that that can be really hard to do. That is a good reason to hire a designer, is so you can have someone who just does the work for you. But also just making sure that you're consistent. So what we do when I work with customers at the very end is we create a style guide. And it's basically like an inspiration board for your own brand. It has references for your fonts, it has references for your logos, it has references for your mood and your style and your personality and your wording and your copywriting, everything together. So basically you can look through this like Bible of your brand before you start anything and get inspired by yourself again. Get inspired by your own work. And so if you don't have something like that made up, I highly, highly recommend consuming your own content, going back through and looking at your own Instagram. Don't look at anyone else's when you're sitting down and you're ready to make content for yourself every single time. Stay off of Instagram, stay out, especially the people that make you kind of like jealous. You know, those brands that like, those are the people that are gonna like hinder your creativity. They're not gonna help it, they're gonna hinder it. You think you're going there to get inspired, but all you're gonna do is wish that you had that brand. Go to yourself, go to your own Instagram, go to your own content and get inspired by yourself again. Remember who it is that you're talking to, remember what it is that you've established for your visuals, and then keep it up. Keep it up, because in the end, you know, at the very beginning I was referencing big brands. We were talking about Coca-Cola, we were talking about Apple, we were talking about Starbucks. Coca-Cola has never changed that red color, ever. They've never changed that like iconic bottle shape. You know, I don't even know how long they've been around. Forever. It's so easy. The poster palette jumping around. Yes, it's easy to jump around. It really is, especially when there's so many templates available now, you know, that you just kind of end up kind of being like, oh, like, well, this Canva, I'm on this app now, and this kind of template seems to be the most similar-ish to what I'm doing. Fine. And so really trying to keep that consistency. Really trying. I really like, for creating content, Adobe Spark. If any of you all are interested, it's an app, and then there's also a desktop version, but you can upload all of your own branding. So you can upload your exact colors, you can upload your fonts, and so that way, even when you're creating like quick graphics on the fly, it's still something that you is already branded and already looks like the rest of your stuff. So that's just a little tip right there. So just referencing back to yourself. Get inspired by yourself, not other people, before you create content. And so that way you can make sure you can still keep trying things, but make sure that you keep setting your own brand parameters. So that way, if you are trying to kind of reinvent something or kind of push boundaries a little bit, you still have some recognizable elements left. So yeah, have some recognizable elements there in your branding. So that's it for today. So I really hope you learned about establishing your brand visuals and becoming more recognizable. Consistency is key. And then I'm going to go through the steps again really quick. So defining your brand, doing your market research, figuring out your style, deciding your visual elements, and then creating a style guide so you can keep it up. That's how you create a recognizable brand. Thanks so much for joining me today, you guys. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I obviously love talking about this stuff. If you want my thoughts on your brand design or brand style, ask me. I would love to reach out. I'd love to connect with you. So have a great day, guys. Happy Monday. Talk to you soon. See you next Monday at 1:30 p.m. PST for some exciting announcements. I'm making some changes up to my content. And so hope to see you guys next week. Have a great day. Bye.